I know how often we all reach for that cheap $30 handheld scope, only to find the image fuzzy and the arm wobbles the second you try to adjust it. The disappointment sets in fast, especially when you've already spent money you could have saved. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. What makes that feeling worse is not just the loss of cash, but the time you waste trying to get a clear view of something that should have been simple, whether it's a tiny circuit trace, a beetle wing, or a piece of jewelry you're trying to assess. When you're on the fence about a microscope, the real question is, do I want to end up with a piece of equipment that feels like a gimmick, or do I want a tool that actually fits into my workflow without demanding a PhD in optics? That's the space the AmScope SM6TPZ 64S 5M tries to occupy. At first glance, the biggest draw is the articulating arm. It stretches out about 40 inches, which means you can clamp it to a lab bench and then swing the head over a workpiece that's sitting on a separate table. I've seen hobbyists set it up so the camera can sit over a 3D printed part while they use the binoculars to fine-tune a print, and the same setup works for a watchmaker who needs both hands-free illumination and a steady view of a tiny gear train. The reach is not just a novelty, it eliminates the need to constantly shuffle the object back and forth between a light source and the microscope, a real time saver when you're dealing with delicate samples that can't be moved often. The Trinocular head is another practical win. Two eyepieces give you that classic stereo depth perception, which is essential when you're trying to gauge the topography of a specimen. Think of separating a solder joint's bridge from the surrounding pads without a second pair of eyes. The third port feeds directly to the built-in digital camera, so you can capture stills or stream video to a laptop without having to mount an external camera later on. In a teaching lab, the instructor can keep the camera feed on a screen while students look through the eyepieces, creating a shared view without sacrificing the stereo experience. That dual-view capability is something you rarely get in lower-priced microscopes that only offer a single eyepiece or a detachable camera that steals the view. Zoom on this model is continuous from 0.7 to 4.5, which feels like a smooth dial rather than the click-stop steps you see on many entry-level units. When I was checking the texture of a leaf under a low magnification, I could simply turn the knob a half turn and instantly see the vein pattern pop into focus. The longer focal range that comes with that zoom means you can stay a comfortable distance from the sample, reducing the chance of accidentally touching or contaminating it. That's a subtle but important advantage for anyone who works with biological specimens or fragile electronics. Lighting is often an overlooked pain point, and AmScope tried to address it with a 64-bulb LED ring that slides on and off the head. The rheostat lets you dim or brighten without flicker, which is a lifesaver when you're moving between a translucent sample and something opaque. Because the ring is removable, you can clean dust off the lenses without having to dismantle the whole unit, and you also have the option to swap in a different light source if you need more focused illumination for a specific task. In practice, I've seen the ring produce a soft, even wash that reveals surface details on a printed circuit board without creating harsh hotspots that would wash out the image at higher magnifications. All these features sound great, but they come with trade-offs. The arm, while flexible, adds a fair amount of heft. You'll need a sturdy surface. A flimsy desk can start to wobble. For everyday use, the biggest question is not just whether AmScope SM6TPZ 64S 5M digital professional trinocular stereo zoom has impressive specs, but whether those specs match the way you actually plan to use it. In the default_tech category, buyers should compare the headline features against their daily routine, setup space, compatibility needs, and how often they will use the product after the first week.